Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be going over, this was from a few weeks ago at this point, but I didn't quite realize how many clips I'd gotten, and I thought it'd be really interesting to discuss handling a 3-day pop-up market, art event, etc., etc. Just for some context, I am an artist, graphic designer, clothing upcycler, a bit of a bunch of things, and I sell my artwork and upcycle clothing under the business of Shelby Lynn Lives. You can find me on, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, but I've been doing these pop-ups. I call them pop-ups, markets, whatever. I've been doing that for over 2 years now. That's kind of been the timeline of me actually somewhat taking all of this seriously. That's a whole other video if we ever want to get into it, but just for context, there is that. And a few weeks ago I had a 3-day pop-up. It was technically specifically an arts festival, but they were open to various vendors of all kinds. It didn't need to be artists, it could be anything. For the art half, I do sell original work. I tend to only bring what I call mini originals, basically anything that is under like a wood size of, maybe this is 5x7, this is like a wood panel I thrifted and then painted over, or more frequently I get mini canvas boards that are roughly 4x5 or 3x5 depending on the board, and I call those my mini original. And so I don't, unless I'm going to an art specific event, which for this event I don't bring anything bigger than an original 5x7, but for this event I brought a few 8x10s, a few 10x10s, and a 2-board spread of the Grand Canyon that I literally finished the week leading up to this. And I brought it mostly knowing it wouldn't sell, but to kind of just really show off my work as a whole, because I had not a great concept of who was coming to an art festival. And then most of my prep work goes into prints. I don't like to stress myself out with originals, I just bring what I have, but prints, obviously it's good to have just a general amount. This is one thing, if you've never done a market before, I am team don't stress yourself out about this. If you have a variation of prints, I like to print just a few of each, and at different events you'll just start to see the prints people gravitate towards. I do print at home. I've had friends who print their pieces at Staples the morning of a market. I've had friends who of course outsource and are able to buy a large amount at a time on really nice paper. It all depends what you are willing to put in, but I promise you there's almost always a difference between the pieces you think will sell really well and the pieces that actually end up selling really well. So as of right now, I'm able to offer 5x7s and 8x10s on my at-home printer. I am looking into larger sizes that I would have to outsource based on pieces that have done really well in smaller sizes. So yes, obviously printing, which normally takes a few hours, and I, yes, genuinely sit on the floor, crisscross applesauce, looking through my prints, making sure they all look nice, making sure I am keeping track of which ones I have a lot of accidentally, which ones I somehow ran out of. I was also checking my website at the same time, because I'm pretty bad about keeping my website up to date with prints specifically, just because it's one of those things that just I kind of leave open-ended, because if someone orders one I can just print one off, because thankfully I have the capacity to do that. But yeah, actually for this event I fished out a few old sketches and watercolors that I was really excited to show off. And it's always fun to just refresh prints every now and again, and I think literally dig through your old work every now and then, see if you can freshen it up, see if you can use it in some way, because you're not going to be coming up with new things most likely all the time. So I love digging in my old work, and that is where a lot of my new pieces came from. In terms of my clothing prep, I kind of treat it like my originals. I have a handful of, we'll say, patterns of clothing that I do, shapes, items. If I were to go and categorize my clothing items, I probably have about 6 different shapes of clothing that I do. I kind of just work on them as I have fabric that I feel fits a certain type of item, or if I'm totally out of something, obviously. It's very weather dependent, seasonal dependent, etc. So, you know, I just tried to bring a good variation of items to kind of showcase that I offer a bit of everything. We weren't quite in peak summer yet where I felt like I couldn't hang something that was a bit heavier. Actually, a few jackets did end up selling, but obviously I was aware that it was starting to get warm and I wanted to just have a good bit of everything there. Before a market, I'm double checking, especially anything that's new, but even old, I tend to kind of just give everything a once over because all this stuff gets packed in and out of bags repeatedly, sometimes for weeks, if not months, and I'm always spot checking to make sure there's nothing wrong with anything, making sure I didn't miss anything, cutting any loose threads, and then I like to photograph every piece that I make. I'm trying to do that. I haven't done that before, so there's definitely pieces that I just don't even remember making, which is fine. That's gonna happen, but I have no way of looking back and seeing those pieces. So for 2024, I have been trying to photograph every single item I've made this year, which I probably have still already missed a few because sometimes I just get in the groove and I whip out like 5 of one thing and there's just I just don't think of it and I throw it in a bag and that's the end. And that's fine. But that is why I'm holding pieces up against my only spare wall in this space and taking a photo of them so that I'm just getting a little bit better at categorizing it. Like I said, this was a 3-day event. And I try my best, being that I make upcycle clothing, to wear at least something that is made by me, whether I am able to offer it in the shop or I've just made it for myself to kind of, again, further show off skills, because I do take commissions and I think it just helps to like overall, like it's half showing off the brand, half just, just trying to embrace it all, I guess. So yes, 3 days. Now, I didn't take a ton of footage during the event for different reasons. I really don't want to just go filming people, so any clips I do have are just of my setup or of me sitting at my setup. But yeah, I wanted to chat about things I bring to events to entertain myself. And now don't get me wrong, if an event is busy and I don't have time to do any of these things, fantastic. That's a great day. But there are plenty of days where there is downtime and you are just sitting there, and might be not controversial, but people will definitely have different strong opinions about this. I, as a person, and even more specifically as a shopper, I am fine with talking to people, but I am not a very chatty with strangers person. I'm not saying I'm not open to it, but it is not often that I will start it. If anything, I am totally just the shopper who wants to just look, appreciate. I will most likely compliment the person if they're the one who made the thing, and then I am deciding in my head if I'm buying anything or not. And easily 80% of the time I'm not buying anything, which is a very normal thing. I don't really have a spiel unless I find people are really like into something, then of course I'll give them a little backstory or information, but I don't like have a spiel when people walk into my space. I want people to feel comfortable, to just be able to look, not feel pressured, and do whatever they wish to do. So that being said, I always have an activity. Always, whether it is crocheting. Normally, I'm honestly for the first hour probably working on an item of clothing that didn't get finished, whether it's hand stitching little things or cutting something. Obviously do what your attention span allows you to do, but I'm all for, I almost always have a bag of activities on hand. I always like to take a little bit of time to get some fresh social media pictures, anything like that, promote the event I'm at, etc., etc. Of course, I'm always doing that. But bring activities. I don't really have this. It definitely isn't supposed to be a how-to video or anything. This weekend was very chaotic. It was very hot. The parking situation was rough, and I'm definitely not trying to bash on this event at all. They warned us about all of this in the email, but it just so happened that my cart was broken, which caused moving everything to be way worse than normal. And of course it was quite a hike from where we were able to unload to where we were actually setting up, and then we had to move our car, and there's just a lot of moving pieces. So it was a stressful, exhausting weekend, and because it was a festival, some of the days were like 12-hour, one of the days was 12 hours and the other 2 days were basically 8 hours. So it was just really long. I asked for Spencer to help me on the 12-hour day because I knew I just could not sit there for that many hours straight without a little bit of help or just conversation and company. I do have incredible friends who often stop by when I'm at events, which is great. Literally, if you know someone who's doing a pop-up and you have the time to go. There is nothing that feels better than like seeing a familiar face, having an actual conversation, whether the event's going great or not. So I know I've now been blabbering for 1.5 million years, but I did just want to kind of try and say a vague, how do you determine if an event is good or bad? Because this event was exhausting. Being someone who doesn't really have help often, and it was a lot of hours, and in theory it was a 3-day event, and I would argue looking back that only one day, Saturday, was worth the energy it took to be there. Every event you do is a learning curve, for good or bad. You learn a lot about yourself, you learn a lot about the market you are trying to be a part of, you learn a lot about how your work is perceived by the group of people who attend these markets, whether that's because of the location it's at, whether that's just who this market that you are popping up at tends to advertise to. You will learn all those things very quickly, and I did fine. In terms of goal setting, I did fine for the weekend, but it was a lot of hours for an outcome I could have achieved possibly at one day at a different event, which is fine. Again, could have been worse. Also, at this event, I was connected with people I haven't been connected with yet, like truly art-focused people, and I haven't really had that much success in finding art-focused events so far. So that was fantastic. I ended up meeting really cool people, met really cool other vendors that I probably wouldn't have met at an event I normally do. Gave out all of my business cards, ran out of business cards. So like, how is that bad? And that is my very technical way of analyzing events. I didn't want to go too in detail on anything because every event's different, every vendor's different, every area that a market's held is different. There's so many possibilities, and even events I've done over and over again have had just bad days for whatever reason. It is a crazy world to be a part of, but I love it. So I hope you somewhat got something out of this little mini vlog. Follow along with me market experience. I am very excited for what's to come, so I hope you subscribe and hang out. I am Shelby Lynn Lives everywhere. Feel free to follow me. My website, where all my work is, will be in the description. And yeah, I can't wait to see you in the next one. So until then, bye!